A lot of people out there don't realize that 1 out of every 3 bites of food they stick in their mouth, these honeybees put on their dinner table.
I think that these problems are not going to go away until we've got more variety, more diversity in landscapes.
There's a realistic part of me that says we're doomed, but then there's another very spiritual part of me that says, look how fast this is changing our planet.
Those girls are just coming out, one after the other, filled with pollen and going back in, and it's just marvelous.
You just do what you can. It makes your life feel good, and it just, it makes me feel like I'm working on something positive. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do.
Production of immense possibilities is made possible by the generous support of the Earth and Humanity Foundation. Wendy Selden. Rogue Co-ops, a community-centered collaboration among the Ashland Food Co-op, the Grange Co-op, Rogue Credit Union, and the Medford Food Co-op. Cliff Bar and Company. Elizabeth York, and these additional members of the Immense Possibilities Community Builders Circle.
Welcome to our weekly visit with people who are creating immense possibilities for healthy communities, solutions to all kinds of challenges. Since our special edition on bees 2 years ago, the word has spread far and wide that these tiny players in our food system, very central players in the system, are in big trouble. And if they are, we are.
A lot of people out there don't realize that 1 out of every 3 bites of food they stick in their mouth, these honeybees put on their dinner table.
And without bees taking pollen from one apple tree to another apple tree, you wouldn't get any apples. And
something is killing our honeybees in staggering numbers.
There's a beehive these bee scientists found a couple days ago. It was full of bees. 3 hours later, nobody home.
My take on colony collapse is it is one of the signs, the really unmistakable signs, that our food system is unsustainable.
Bees are an indicator of environmental quality. When the bees are dying, something's wrong.
We put agencies like the EPA in place to moderate the avarice of corporations, and they have not done it. Instead, they've been corrupted.
We don't have to wait for the government to act on some of these issues. We can do something today.
We are going to try to save them so they won't disappear.
They're in good company and growing company. People all over are finding all kinds of ways to make sure the bees don't disappear. 2 years ago, we featured a guest who did a great job drawing the big picture for us. So it's a real pleasure to welcome back to the program Mace Vaughn, who's co-director of the Pollinator program for the Xerces Society in Portland. Mace, welcome back to Immense Possibilities.
It's great to be back. Thanks, Jeff.
Remind us what the Xerces Society is.
You bet. So the Xerces Society is the oldest and largest insect conservation organization in the United States. So we were founded in 1971 to work on butterfly conservation. And since the, mid-1980s, we've really broadened our mission to work on butterflies, pollinators broadly, and a whole host of other conservation issues around wildlife and insects.
Since we talked a couple years ago, the crisis of bees, that discussion has really entered the mainstream in a pretty big way. How seriously do you take the threat, broadly speaking, to bees and other pollinators these days?
I think that the alarm right now is well-founded. We really need to be doing everything we can to create landscapes, agricultural, urban landscapes that are really supportive of these insects.
So summarize for us what the main causes are as far as the scientific community knows.
So we've got the loss of habitat across broad landscapes. We've got the use of insecticides and other pesticides. We've got the spread of diseases among populations. We have a whole host of issues that are really swirling around and causing all these different issues and problems with bees across North America.
Have the last couple of years since we talked brought any sharply good or bad news?
I think the good news for me is the groundswell of support, both, let's say, within the federal government and nationally, as well as at the local level, of people who are really stepping up to take action. We've got local groups starting local neighborhood efforts to citywide efforts to regional efforts to try to plant more and more bee forage into both our neighborhoods and our farm landscapes. I think for me, the inspiration is just how people are really taking this to heart and taking action.
As far as the pesticide piece of this goes, and there's pretty broad agreement that that's at least part of the problem, does that take us into a really difficult political area where there are very big moneyed interests that are a challenge here?
It absolutely takes it into a difficult political arena. We can't hide from the fact that insecticides pose a very significant risk and that we need to be doing something to manage that risk, to eliminate that risk. And that involves work at a number of different levels.
The last time we talked about the small pollinator gardens that people were planting, sometimes in very small places. Do we know whether in the aggregate that effort's starting to have an effect or not?
They do have an aggregate effect. And I think what's exciting for me is, the number of people who are actually taking that action, who are really engaging in putting basically beautiful wildflowers in the landscape that are good for bees. And in fact, what's interesting is here in Portland, we've got the Sabin Bee-Friendly Garden Project, which is, a neighborhood that I happen to live in. But this one neighborhood is banding together, and so one house is inspiring in another and another, such that these individual gardens, particularly if you put a little sign in them that says, "Hey, here's what I'm doing," is inspiring other neighbors to do the same thing.
If there's someone who still thinks that this bee crisis is sort of a boutique kind of fringe problem that won't matter much over time, what would you say to them?
I would heartily disagree. And the reason I say that is I feel like it's taken us a while to get to where we are. We've got whole cities, whole neighborhoods that are just devoid of any sort of diversity, devoid of any sort of flowering plants. We've got farm landscapes that farmers are trying to make a living. They're doing the best they can, but we've got this increased intensification over time. I think that these problems are not going to go away until we've got more variety, more diversity in landscapes. When we create habitat in our backyards or on our farms for pollinators, we're really creating habitat for a whole suite of wildlife. So we can be supporting water quality, soil erosion control. We can be creating hedgerows and windbreaks that do a lot more than just provide habitat for pollinators.
In this whole area, what do you most want people in general and policymakers particularly to understand that you think they may not?
I want for people to continue the momentum that we have in place right now, both at the national level and at the local level. And it's going to sound maybe a little corny, but I want people to enjoy this effort. I mean, we've got a major crisis on our hands. We've got bees dying all over the US, but we've also got this amazing opportunity, maybe more so for the backyard gardener, to really get our hands dirty, to put plants in the ground, to create a landscape that's not just good for bees, but a landscape that's beautiful and diverse as well.
Mace, what do you get out of this work?
I'll be very frank with you. I am fascinated by these insects. I think that bees, butterflies, the variety of these insects and other animals that come to flowers are beautiful. I think their natural history, their life stories are interesting. I love the fact that it's been a way for me to connect with my parents, and as they've created their own bee garden on the other side of the country, we trade notes, we talk about what they're doing, we plant together. This is something that on a personal level for me has been an important part of building community, and doing something in a way that beautifies the landscape. And it's just fascinating. I think when people begin to see bees and look at them up close, it opens their eyes to a whole new world of diversity, of wildlife that many people have just ignored or been afraid of. And all of a sudden they, walking along a lawn with clover or by a flower garden, you begin to notice things that you haven't noticed before. And for me, that's incredibly rewarding.
Mace Vaughn is with the Xerces Society in Portland. Mace, you've given us another great conversation. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed talking to you.
It's my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
By keeping our bees,
keep our food, our earth, our future. Our life. The movement to protect and sustain pollinators, especially honeybees, has really taken off in the 2 years since we covered the story. One initiative with a lot of momentum is sort of a public-private partnership called Bee City USA. And the second city in the country to be designated a Bee City, and the very first on the West Coast, is Talent, Oregon. And here to tell us how that happened are Talent City Manager Tom Corrigan and longtime bee advocate and Talent resident Dolly Warden. Welcome to the both of you. Thanks for coming to join us.
Thank you.
Good to be.
Tom, first of all, what does it mean to be part of Bee City USA?
Well, it's more than just a plaque or a sign at the entrance to Talent. It's the citizens and involving the community with the government in being stewards of the land and looking forward to the future in keeping our pollinators flourishing and of course the lands with it.
Why did the council and mayor and public officials in Talent think that was an important thing to do?
Well, we're all here a very short time on this earth, and if we can keep it green and moving forward and our citizens happy too, and that's a very important part. Citizens came to us to say, hey, we would like to do this. And our council and mayor responded and gave staff direction.
Dolly, you were one of those citizens, as I understand it. So tell us the story. Here we have Talent, Oregon, population about how much?
6,500.
6,500 people. The first town on the West Coast, the second town in the whole country to win this designation. How is it that came about?
I was reading online the newsletter of the Honeybee Research Center, and right there it had about how Asheville, North Carolina, was a bee city, the first one, and how it wanted other cities to do that. When I read about it, I said, we're going to do that in Talent. I don't know exactly when, but it's going to happen. Why
was that so important to you?
It was so important because bees, I grew up with bees when I was a child. I was the one that my father chose to go into the apiary and to work the smoker while he was inspecting the hives. And it just was like coming back home.
Sometime after Talent became a bee city, Ashland became the second bee city on the West Coast, the fifth overall to join. Do you expect this to grow fast?
Oh, I definitely think so. If people actually look at it and look at other cities' experiences, I think that they would be foolish not to.
Have you had to change any practices now that you're a bee city, operational practices for the city?
We had to look at them, and initially we looked at how we sprayed, how we took care of our open space area, what plants we put in for the pollinators, but it became very natural and it was very fluid. Originally I had a lot of questions. Was it a legal issue that was going to come up, because we were putting, as Dolly had said, bees that people could be allergic to? Would our insurance company give us a lot of restrictions?
Well, I'm thinking a lot of city managers would be thinking like that and say, I don't know what they are, but there are headaches down the road here, and I just don't need it, and take a pass on it. But you and your council said, let's do this.
No, it went very smoothly.
Congratulations for not being overly bureaucratic.
Thank you. It was tough at the beginning, but I think we plowed through, and with the help of our citizens, we made it happen.
Tom, you sort of had an unplanned bee event in Talent recently. Tell us about it.
Recently, we were notified that there was a very large hive on one of our city streets in a tree on a small branch. And we were told it would not make it through the winter. It would not make it even through a good heavy soaking rain. And we actually went up, sawed off the limb, and we took all the necessary precautions, and we were safe, and we had all the utilities there. We closed the street, and we moved the hive.
When rain started to fall early this morning, city officials say they had to make a quick change of plans.
It came down to the weather is still helpful for moving bees. So at 11:30, about 11:45, we decided, let's go try to do it today. Charter came right out, everybody came right out. We had everything planned. we just went with it.
Pacific Power supplied the scissor lifts, and the crew was assisted by expert beekeepers as they cut the hive, branch and all, away from the line. It was a slow process, considering any sudden bump could break the cone and send thousands of bees into a panic.
And I was never so scared as the very last moment before the branch with the hive was placed into the box. And I'm like, they're gonna drop it. I know something's gonna happen. We're all standing here. And it went magically, it really did.
What do you think would have happened with the same exact situation with that swarm 10 years ago?
There wouldn't have been a beehive after that day. One of the utilities, and perhaps it would have even been the city, come along and knocked it down, sprayed it, dusted it over. That would have been it.
Treated it like a menace and nothing else.
Exactly. And even the people now, our public works department, I mean, we're talking Teamsters here, now know the difference between wasps and bees and what are good and what are bad and how you can handle them. That's amazing, a little bit of training.
Why was that an important event?
Well, we wanted to show that we could do this. And it was important to get everyone together, all the different utilities. I mean, citizen buy-in, council buy-in, insurance companies, phone companies, power companies, and it all came together. And everyone said, you know, this is a good idea. Let's go do this.
The hive still exists. I have been taking care of it, and this winter I've been feeding it and put insulation around it, and it has been the busiest hive I have ever had. Those girls are just coming out one after the other, filled with pollen and going back in, and it's just marvelous.
It just feels like something gets awakened that's about more than bees in this process. What's your take on that, Tom?
I haven't had as much experience in this in the past, but there was a bonding moment between everyone there when the bee box was closed and all the bees were safely inside. And we're all like, you know, slapping each other on the back and smiling, and we all cheered. And all the residents on that street saw us. And I think we would just like to have more citizens like that.
Is there anything you'd say, Tom, to a city manager somewhere who says, well, fine, wonderful, I got enough on my plate, thanks, without a whole new project. I'll take a pass.
This is one of the easiest payback jobs that we have ever had. And initially you look at it and you think it's very foreboding, and end up you've got a big smile on your face when you go home.
This is low-hanging honey, huh?
Exactly, yes.
What's the immense possibility of this whole Bee City USA movement?
I see that our grandchildren and their children are going to have food.
That's pretty immense.
Yes, it is.
Dolly Warden and Tom Corrigan are from Talent, Oregon, and were instrumental in Talent's designation as a Bee City USA, the second in the country, the first on the West Coast. Great story. I want to come see what's going on in your Bee City. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Please do.
We gotta open the bare fence and look at our girls. I see flight on all of these hives. That is incredible. Let's hope it's not robin. I am so excited. Oops, I probably forgot where the camera was pointed. Aw, look at her. She looks really good. They're making it. They're doing really good. Good job, girls. Oh, I love you.
That is the voice of Laura Ferguson, or Laura B., who's created what she calls a Center for Sacred Beekeeping just outside of Ashland, and who is with us right now to share some of her work with us. Laura, welcome to Immense Possibilities.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Tell us how you were drawn to bees as the focus of your work.
When I was a child, I saw an observation hive in the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and there was a moment when my family was trying to pull me away from it when I went to, you know, like a 10-year-old, hugged this thing, and I put my ear up against the observation hive and heard the hum of the bees, and that literally brought tears to my eyes, and I think looking back, it was probably one of my first spiritual experiences of my life. Then fast forward a few years, my son's grown, time for me to empty that empty nest, and I started looking for my purpose in life and realized quite quickly that it is to be a spokesperson for the honeybee. The honeybee itself as a metaphor is just such an excellent example of group dynamics and group behavior, and they work together. Every bee serves the entire whole. No one bee can survive without all of the other bees, and they do the very busy work of pollinating not only so much of our food that we hear about in the media, but also 90% of our trees and other life forms on the planet that that promote healthy ecosystems.
What are a couple forms of effective activism for people who are concerned but who aren't going to be keeping bees?
Right, that's a great question. Planting native plants, maintaining parts of your land as wildlands so that native pollinators could have an ecosystem, and of course plant flowers, plant organic flowers.
And you're talking about, it doesn't matter how much ground you have.
Right.
Even a little bit really matters here.
Absolutely.
There are plenty of people out there working with bees and for bees who may not have thought about this as a sacred or spiritual activity, involvement. Is that just fine with you, or do you think they're missing out on something?
I think if they actually looked at their relationship, they would find out that it actually is sacred for them. I feel that that's just an easy recognition once you fall in love with the bee.
If people were to take one thing, one piece of information or understanding away from our whole conversation about bees today, what would you hope it would be?
It is time for us to honor these creatures in deep and profound ways through civic and personal choices. They represent a whole host of life that is making life on this planet possible.
How hopeful are you about the future of the pollinator populations in a time when the trends are really alarming?
I think that's a great question, and it has a painful answer because there's a realistic part of me that says we're doomed, but then there's another very spiritual part of me that says, look how fast this is changing our planet. Everybody knows about it. We have a chance. We have a chance to turn this around.
Is there a way in which it doesn't matter what the answer to that question is in terms of what you do day to day?
That's absolutely true. You just do what you can. It makes your life feel good, and it just, it makes me feel like I'm working on something positive. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do.
Laura Ferguson, Laura B. of the College of Melissa, thanks for the work that you're doing. Thanks for coming and tell us about it on Immense Possibilities.
It has been a great honor. Thank you so much.
Bees. I think to myself, how can I save them? Growing, pollinating, flying, they're like little tiny robots buzzing around the garden, helping me, my family, my state, my country, my world, the great and powerful bees. There's a line where it's moving. The circle's turning around. There's something that's moving. So each time it passes and there's no thing that blocks it, it goes in the belt. It goes on another circle thing which we take off and put it in the boxes. And I started when I was 4.5. My granny sent a 1940 cookbook and it had the recipe for flaxseed lemonade. I wanted to put mint and honey in flaxseed lemonade and I tried it and it was really good. Every single time I sell lemonade, every single time, I haven't sold lemonade once without a bee coming through my stand or coming through my table or coming under my tent or just going around my lemonade because I think they're attracted to the honey. Bees are important because 1 out of every 3 bites we eat, bees pollinate and they're dying. If the bees left the surface of the earth, humans would have no more than 4 years left to live. And that was according to Albert Einstein. What I do to help the bees is I donate some of my profit to organizations that help the bees. And one of those is Heifer and another one is Texas Beekeepers Association. Saving the bees is fun and I know that saving the bees is something that I should be doing. I get stung by a bee twice. I got stung by a bee one in the ear and one on the neck on the same week. I saw the beehive and I thought, well, that's super cool. And I'm like, what else about them? And so I wanted to learn more, and I became super interested in them. I really like teaching other families about bees, and I like having to make my own money instead of using my parents or asking my parents. I talk about the importance of bees, and I talk about how we can save the bees. And we do a little project, is making a little bee-friendly flower out of an eco-friendly pot. Encouraged to meet new people or speak in front of people. They need to have passion because the more passionate you are about what you do, the better you'll do it and the more fun you'll have while doing it. And you need to have perseverance to make your business bigger and better, and it's going to be a lot funner, and you can push it, and everybody will. Courage, passion, and perseverance. You can actually taste the honey, and it does not have caffeine, or it doesn't have a high fructose corn syrup, and it's really healthy for you, but it's delicious at the same time.
That's it for this edition of Immense Possibilities. For more information about the show or to send us suggestions, go to immensepossibilities.org or go to our Facebook page and like and share us there. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeff Golden. Till next time, please do what you can do. Thanks for watching to learn about tonight's Immense Possibility. You can watch any of our past programs anytime at immensepossibilities.org.
The SOU House experience is really an opportunity for students to get out of the classroom and engage the community in solving real-world problems.
Houses are about a spirit of adventure. Maybe that's rafting or building a house, but it's also about the adventure of figuring out what comes next.
Get involved, make a difference in the world.
Get connected, join a house.